by respectfully acknowledging that mass poetry in Salem, Massachusetts are on the ancestral territory of the Wampanoag, Nipmuc, Massachusetts, Nom, Keg, and Agawam. Many other Indigenous communities have lived and moved through this land over hundreds of years, and many Indigenous people work and live in these regions today. Let's take a moment to honor these ancestral grounds that we are collectively gathered upon and support the resilience and strength that all Indigenous people have shown worldwide. We at Mass Poetry are also intentional about ensuring that events are accessible to everyone attending and involved in the festival. We have closed captions available at this event. If you can't see them, you can turn them on by clicking the live transcript button at the bottom of your Zoom screen and then show subtitles. If you would like to turn them off, you can choose hide subtitles. For anyone who is depending on auto captions today, to ensure chat messages are not popping up over the captioning, click on chat at the bottom of the screen and it will open a chat panel to the right.
Don't know how to clean it up. I can come in like a couple minutes.
If you experience any trouble with this or any other logistics, please send a private chat message to myself or to Kaylin. In regarding Zoom etiquette, please keep yourself muted unless you're invited to unmute by the speakers. And there are many ways to interact with each other via the chat and the Zoom reaction buttons, so please feel free to use them. Please be kind and respectful to the event producers and your fellow participants. We will remove participants for discriminatory behavior or harassing comments, and in such cases, participants may be removed from further festival participation. Thank you all for your patience, and we hope you enjoy the event.
All right, thank you all. Greetings. And I'm seeing folks come in from the waiting room, but welcome to Drawing Inspiration from the Everyday, a reading. Thank you to the festival's director, MP Carver, and the staff, including Crystal Valentine, Kaylin Wu, Megan, everyone who's making it happen today. We are particularly glad to have interpreters present. Today's theme recognizes that we can't just wait for the muse. Each writer has found discerning, exciting ways to push themselves as creators. In part, we may do this by gleaning inspiration from casual interactions, television, simple choices of food and drink, while interrogating the pressures of everyday existence. I want to briefly introduce those who will be speaking. You can find their full bios on the festival website. I'll begin, and each of us will read for about 10 to 12 minutes. If there is time permitting, we'll answer a few questions at the end. Erica Foreman is a poet and writer from Detroit, Michigan. Her debut collection is Salt, Body, Shimmer. She has earned fellowships from Cave Canem, Callaloo, and the Malay Colony for the Arts. She lives in Chicago, Illinois. Kate Durbin is an artist and writer whose most recent poetry collection is Hoarders. An earlier book, Abra, is also a free interactive iOS app that is a living text and won the 2017 International Turn On Literature Prize for Electronic Literature. Khadijah Queen is the author of 6 books, most recently Anodyne, and the verse play Non Sequitur, which won the Leslie Scalapino Award for Innovative Women's Performance Writing. This fall, she joins the creative writing faculty at Virginia Tech. I just want to say how much I am thrilled to share this virtual stage with these 3 poets. I'm Sandra Beasley, and my most recent of 4 poetry collections is Made to Explode. I'm also the author of a disability memoir, Don't Kill the Birthday Girl, Tales from an Allergic Life. I live in Washington, DC. My life is informed by 20 years of growing up in Virginia and 20 years of living in the nation's capital. So it's no surprise that Made to Explode is my most political book, the most critical of history and cultural inheritance. Even in returning to topics that I've written about before, such as my food allergies, I took a keener approach to looking at the power dynamics of how allergies were accommodated or othered by those around me versus hunkering down in my own pain narrative. But I found that in addition to the bolder poems of this collection, I needed quieter pieces that humanized the places and figures being critiqued. With these thoughts in mind, I'll read 3 poems. Yes, I'm writing about the weaponization of patriotism. Yes, I'm writing about a city where an insurrection was staged mere blocks, literally, from where I live. No, not all the lessons instilled by my grandparents' generation were worth keeping. But I'm writing, as always, about people trying to connect. From Made to Explode, Elephant. On the Route 7 strip, next to the office supply store, next to the pool supply store, next to the Tower Records, next to the TJ Maxx, the Ranger surplus lurked, where I shopped only at the edges, iron-on patches, all weather lighters, vintage plate pinups, never venturing into the groin of camouflage or camping gear until I began buying weapons, including a mace, a chained flail, several throwing stars, and the book Contemporary Surveillance Techniques, with its cover art showing a man crouched in a stereo speaker. All gifts for my father. Because what do you get the man who has everything? And by everything, I mean a large caliber shell casing, upright and decorative in the living room where you might expect a potted ficus to be. And these too were the years he gave me t-shirt after t-shirt, souvenirs of every posting and deployment, including the one that said Hard Rock Cafe Baghdad closed, Kuwait now reopening. T-shirts that fit poorly over my new breasts, boxy, unflattering. And so I shut them away in drawers again and again. Each of us trying to say to the other, I see you. The way a blindfolded man takes the tail into his hands, believing from this he can see the whole elephant. Little Love poem. The 6 a.m. sun considers everything, humming its way past the Capitol. I reheat yesterday's coffee, put lima beans into a pot. Ford hook, always Ford hook, drizzle of olive oil, pinch of salt, shake of chili flakes. The chicken broth comes to boil for a minute before I cover, simmer. Soon he'll wake and I'll ask him to put a record on, something with no words, bowls, spoons, a single twist of pepper. And finally, card table. A practical gift for moving to the city. Good cherry squared around black vinyl. 4 long legs that fold within itself as a greyhound does, disappearing into a nap. Just big enough for a bridge match if I'd ever had 4 people willing to kiss knees. Just big enough to let me call a corner of that S Street studio my breakfast nook. stacked with a week's worth of newspapers, while I ate cereal cross-legged on my futon. Just big enough to pull out every few years and complain how small the table was, too crowded as a desk, too low for my chairs. In January, we stared at the strange space wedged between two kitchen doorways. Might as well try the card table. We stacked onions there, then potatoes, then tomatoes and peaches, and it became the chopping table, stirring table, serving table. Now, the first morning she is gone, I see a swipe in the vinyl where a hot dish burned through, and I realize I forgot to ask for anything, a ring, her sheet music. So what I have is this reminder that she too was once a girl in a city, and that she knew I'd always need a table. Thank you.
That was so beautiful, Sandra. Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Erica Foreman. I will be sharing a few poems from my debut full length called Salt Buddy Shimmer, which came out on Yes Yes Books last year. And I'm super delighted and honored and just really basking in gratitude for being in space with these wonderful co-presenters, poets whose work I've admired for a really long time. And so I'm just really thrilled to be in conversation with you all. I'm going to start off with a poem called Blue Magic. Much of this work is very much dealing with ways to apprehend joy and resilience and fortitude in a very often cruel world, and how to use this work to intercept violence with resistance. So part of that is Black girl hair. So we're going to start with some Blue Magic. Equipped from the siege, it takes detangling a tender-headed child's hair. Mema arms herself. Thick-toothed comb parting fields of naps, bushels of soft kink pulled through rubber bands. Roots grown into stalks, brown bound by metallic threaded black. The click of two bright marbled orbs. Each Saturday night we'd do this dance when she had no room for my mother's and my libretto, our fussing, the rafter pitch of my wail. Just right of her reach, a thin yellow promise to pop my balled up fist should I think of breaking loose. A thunderhead after washing, drops of conditioner, thick water, plump tufts of crowded strands. She pulled the plaits tight, slathered my raw scalp with blue magic. Phyllis sings, when I give my love this time, I'm gonna make it last forever. And perhaps this too is how I'm wrought. The steel of being beautiful, tears for what hands can do, wrangled wild wine, corkscrewed from the fruit, making my grandfather's line repent. But oh, those wayward vines of river rhyme, the devil is a lie. In the name of hot combs, hair picks, bobby pins, and satin scarves. I wonder if my mother saw herself in the schoolyard as I smoothed down the feral edges of my hair, waiting, watching some brilliant Black boy backflip across the grass. In the morning mirror, gel on the bristles of a slender brush, I scooped the baby hairs along my temple into shells. We drove down 7 Mile, singing Anita Baker, too early for all that heartbreak. I must have refused her kiss at least once at drop-off. At least once, she must have squinted with worry at my newfound love for adornment. Her knuckles white as she pulled away. I don't remember looking back. This next piece is called Always something here to remind me, thinking very, very deeply and sending solidarity and love to the folks of Sheikh Jarrah, Gaza and beyond, from the river to the sea. Always something here to remind me. I face myself when I hear the news, driving toward the mall to buy the kind of camouflage it takes to be a woman, say, I'm good. The summer mile long, my sister still warm in her grave. I feel most dead these days, grief a tick latched at my neck. I am most lonely when I feel this dead. In the parking lot, the engine runs. The podcast host press, I am so fucking tired. I'm tired of being peaceful. I'm tired of this shit. What else do we have to do to be treated human? A woman slows her walk toward her minivan, my volume full blast. She winces. I realize how hard I'm sobbing. I don't recognize my sound. I don't wipe my face. I walk inside, tell the counter woman without looking, NW47 and the blot powder in deep dark, please. And when she says, no, that can't be right. You're much lighter than that. I stare, and she stares and waits. And I stare, say nothing. And we go on like this under the flickering fluorescence until she retrieves the foundation 2 shades lighter, opens it, taps it on a mirrored disc, dabs her sponge. And she doesn't ask before reaching. And I don't pause before grabbing her wrist, just get me what I asked for. And she stares and I stare, the lights still buzzing. Maybe I haven't been dead, but living in the second stage of grief. This rage that drops its red hot pin on a map, Missouri, Michigan, Florida, New York, Mississippi, California, where I look for other words for meadow, marrow, crow. I want more than what I get, where there are no more Black dresses or mothers with carnations pinned to their blouses, no causes and no news outlets to say alleged when they mean deserved it. In a different world, I don't have to face myself. I don't take a white lover only to take something back. I pull into the driveway of a safe tree-lined street, set my bags on the counter. My lover texts, how are you? I type his name like a prayer. Michael, 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 Michael. Who, she asks? Who? One blues in the hand, good as several in the blood. Having not chopped but brought in the wood, stacked the hunks into a monument for burning. Having scrubbed the mollusks to glean, having browned them opened, seasoned a bath that would wash away any shame to run from. Sponge the milky brine with garlic bread brushed with oil of ripe olives from the long rows of trees I did not pluck from or grow. I know what it means to be lucky and alive, to suck out the pit, gather the clef, leap in the go-go of a good day. Hearken a lineage, third descendant of Roxy Morris, of mechanic garb smeared in crude and sweat, cranking wrench beneath, fire crown of auburn nap and freckle, architect of spades games, full plates and easy shade. Of cuss your children out for sawing her good dining room chairs with the steak knives, of migrations and leaving husbands, of one blues in the hand as good as several in the blood, who escape novel death, the lucky and scarred, colliding like genres, genes, of those who love too much. A well, archive of my heart, a wonder in winter dirt holding over consequence, waiting, green, budding and bursting, women of sequin tatter, sunrises hem and haw, light rising as buttered cornbread, skimming gold off the anxious water. And then this last poem is called Born Again on a Pilsen Dance Floor. Dervish of black pleather, chandelier of ink latticed across my shoulder. I guzzle through the tunnel of a straw, return to a lover as percussion coaxes my ass into figure eights. Traffic shuffles through the gangway of the club. A woman praises, yes, hair flip, until I am a cyclone of forgetting. Mizuku in fishnet conjures on top of the bar, fastens a metal harness to her crotch, grinds against the machine, bestows a cascade of sparks. Mizuku thrusts slow, a waterfall of light across us. Mizuku makes it rain radiant from behind. The brilliance spills out down her legs, and look, I have left men for much less, more than likely will do so again. What animals back into the shadow of their own hunger? I bear my face to the falling Andromeda, press against the pyrotechnic glory that threatens to set me on fire. Let her spray me down before December embezzles me into the same old mistakes, convinced I can be born again every night, exactly like this. Thank y'all so much.
Hi, I'm Kate Durbin. I think I'm supposed to introduce myself now, right? Yeah, okay. I just wanted to say I'm honored to be here with these three poets, and I also wanted to thank Sandra for putting this event together, all the work you did behind the scenes. I'm going to read from my new book, Hoarders, just out from Wave Books, and I'll share a little artist statement first. So Hoarders is inspired by and written through the reality TV show of the same name. I have several books now that have been created through writing through reality television. So I wanted to share a little bit about what drew me to the material, my experience writing through it, and what came of it. My family's life has been shaped for decades by mental illness, substance use, and hoarding. On a personal level or a heart level, I was drawn to and also frightened of watching and writing about this show. I'd actually never watched the show before I wrote about it, and I quickly realized once I started watching that I was right to feel hesitant, as it was a painful experience. And yet I also felt compelled to write and think through the complex and sticky relationship between people and objects, to seek understandings of that relationship between an individual and their stuff. Those who hoard have a lot to say about their objects and the traumas they have been through in this difficult country, where you're often on your own when you're in trouble. I believe their stories are important to listen to. We have such strong and sticky attachments to the objects in our lives. We experience them with as much emotion as we do our relationships to other people. In many ways, they are our companions and have stories of their own to tell. So I'm going to read two poems from Hoarders. The first one is Marlena from Topanga Canyon, California. I'm Marlena, the worst hoarder on planet Pink Sands Yankee Candle. My house is like a bomb went off at Walmart, shattered seashell wreaths, tangle of rainbow, LED hummingbird wind chimes, tie-dye lion tapestry with a hole in the lion's face, Drew Barrymore flower home collection plates with half-eaten Luna bars and dead wasps. I was a fashion model for many years in Europe, moth-eaten Balenciaga dresses. Then my husband and I fell in love. Photo of young Marlena and a man hugging in front of a private jet, her hair in pigtails, her midriff tanned and toned. Our relationship was storybook, ceramic plate of two chickens pecking, smeared with crystallized honey. After a few weeks, he proposed, some bleached hippie boho fabric lovebirds. I felt like we stepped onto a magic carpet and just flew. Cost plus world market decorative pillows, glitter elephant throw, crushed banana chips, blackened bananas, crumpled Sunset magazine pages, stuffed panda and lotus pose on Marlena's bed. But after our daughter was born, my husband started dating other women secretly, dozens of Louis Vuitton bags under the bed. When I found out, I just wanted a divorce. On the front door, keep out, absolutely no solicitors, this means you. Beware of dog sign, card that says, Our Lady of Lourdes, pray for us, and underneath, in shaky handwriting, Help me, God. I felt suicidal, but I had my 2-year-old daughter to think of. Photo of Marlena's daughter in pigtails and big Chanel sunglasses playing the piano. That was a very hard time for me, completely lost in the bathroom, dusty makeup brushes, goopy concealer, murky bottles of Dior nail polish, melted cherries on snow Yankee Candle with gray hairs stuck in the wax. I started collecting Whole Foods 365 products. My kitchen sink is totally full. Organic Turkish apricots, cheddar bunnies, sea salt avocado oil, canyon cut potato chips, Himalayan pink salt popcorn, cookie dough collagen protein bars, organic goji berries, Blue Magic cashew milk, majestic sprouted hummus. My hoarding has caused a terrible rift between me and my American Girl doll with a destroyed face. She started taking my things and throwing them out without asking, so I put all of her old things in plastic bags. Little Mermaid Ariel doll smeared with marker, Easy Bake Oven filled with old crumbs, Little Miss Makeup doll with red cheeks and lips and chewed fingers, clump of My Little Ponies. I said she wasn't welcome at the house anymore. Dirty lips pillow that says, kiss me. I want desperately to change. Marlena digging in neighborhood trash bins, a flashlight strapped to her head. She pulls out Chase credit card statements, styrofoam food containers, Starbucks reusable plastic cups. But I don't like when people throw out things that still work. Marlena testing a Sharpie on an electricity bill. When they put trash in the recycling bin, I move it to the trash. Marlena carefully moving a Chiquita banana peel from the recycling to the trash. When plants in the neighborhood are not properly watered, I do. Marlena facing a tree, pouring water on its roots, her slender legs and her thin neck, her gray hair. Even though this is trash to most humans on the planet, it isn't trash to me. Marlena slowly reaching into a giant pile of unopened Whole Foods items on her kitchen floor and lifting out a bottle of water. Marlena somehow pulling a clean cup from the eruption inside the sink. Marlena pouring herself a cup of water to drink. And then I'm going to read one more. This is Gary from Franklin, Indiana. And each book in the collection focuses on an individual in a specific location and a particular category of items that they hoard. So there's Barbies, there's vintage Las Vegas memorabilia, and in this case, Gary holds on to plants. I'm Gary, and I love plants, climbing roses covering the roof, shattered skylight with a ficus growing through it, buckets of rainwater at the foot of the stairs. When I see things grow, I feel like God, black mold slowly spreading across the ceiling. Because I've created, vines and power cords wrapping around the banister. My house is like a greenhouse. In the front hall, weeping figs with no path through, shattered pots and dank earth underfoot, every room in the house filled with plants. I started collecting plants when I was forced to retire from my job as a paramedic. Gary standing in a bathtub packed with soil, clutching a dead yucca. When I got out, I missed the structure and I missed the people. In the living room, spider plants perch on chairs, sleeves draping over arms. On the floor in tiny forests of philodendrons, ceramic satyrs, dancing mushrooms, laughing elves, frog drinking coffee, gnome with daisies in his beard. But some things I'd like to forget. On each stair, succulents in 7-Eleven big gulp cups and worn men's New Balance sneakers. Some cacti with arms torn, others thin and shriveled. Lifting a skinny kid in a Cinderella nightgown who drank her parents' medication they used to help with their addictions. Dead orchids held to a stick with gauze, reflected in a glass gazing ball from Home Depot. Touching a dead boy's brain as I pull his body in a bag after he flipped his new car. In the dining room, Ivies drip water on raised beds filled with earth and cracked exposed bulbs. Taking an old man who couldn't breathe to the hospital and knowing his wife would never see him again. Dirt on the mattress in the shape of a human. This is your job. You should be tough. You should be able to manage. Kitchen table filled with cooking pots of water and ivy, tiny gnats swimming in the shade of parlor palms. When my ex-wife moved my plants, I got so angry. Gary on a dirty mattress, a floral sheet pulled over him. Over the bed, a string of lights made to look like vines, shelves of spider plants in mason jars, tendrils sweeping down, brushing his hair as he sleeps. I keep a hospital gurney. Gary pushing a gurney of cacti with upreaching arms through narrow paths between destroyed furniture and sickly yellow leaves that caress his ankles as he walks. I use it to move plants from point A to point B. Gurney of cacti resting outside in the sun next to Gary on a chaise lounge. I know it doesn't make sense to other people, but it makes sense to me. Vines twine around mildewed armchairs and end tables, grandfather clock face of the moon and stars, walls soft with rot, floors decomposing under dirt and maggots and dead leaves. On the mantle, also covered in vines and dirt, old family photos and a small garden statue of Paul Revere. Thank you.
Khadijah, we just want to get you unmuted.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for joining me. I'm just thrilled to be here with you. Thank you, Erica and Kate and Sandra. I hope you'll all forgive my bootleg setup. I'm joining you from Blacksburg, Virginia, just moving into my house. So, which is, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge in the traditional territory of the Tutelo and Monacan nations. Happy to be here. Thank you, MP, and everybody with the Massachusetts Poetry Festival. I'll read four poems from my latest book, Anodyne. And thank you to Rory and Bree for the ASL interpretation. This is Common Miracles. Across the definition of blue, a dozen rave in disappearing patterns, choral of sparrows. Branches beam full green, Bebel sings, a falling star is here and with us, cavaquinho, fado, mandolin. Invisibly, a cracked bone stitches itself a whitened scar over and over. Acacia wires, breath cold under cuica, timbal, a wasp on the stone poolside for a monument. Erosion. 10 million years casts any movement as given. Grand Mesa, prone to rock slide, but craters at Dotsero stay young. Once lava flow took a mile of highway, stretched out its red heat and black smoke rising gray to white, no lake, crawling baby of magma and water. When snow-topped, both still boom with basalt, that molten underground we swim the surface of. In Palisade, the low range casts no shadow over the vines, peaks rising inward as separate entities, stark high earth and low height green. Road dust cradles the ground. I go there with a friend, a drink in the evening becomes two, laughter, then a free confession overlooking lavender fields, man-made, another desert burdened, in which one person admits they are precious enough to hide. The night brings out hunters, intoning survival in that shadow, blink of life and swallow and vapor, body ever in revolt, a red centimeter of a mouth. asking what else. How we fail is how we continue. Antediluvian. Where were you when the truth disappeared, or when the truth battered us and we pretended fear fell from the ripped pillow of our sky instead of rising up from the one clear place of us? Where were you when strong men told us to die and blasted us into nothing? Were you downtown to witness the smooth mirage stagnate in skyscraper shade and neon glower? Did you hop a bus and clutch a cold center rail, the sweat of your palm making you slip as if at sea? Were you at sea in memory gathered into lyric, your body pretending any era was a safe one? 6 persimmons ripen unconsumed. Mayfly wings flash their iridescence in the dark. Nothing works. By swallowing alarm, you scrapped what you knew near plaza fountains, ultra anonymous. Now, an arrowhead sharpens the blood under our flesh. Low to the ground, a sea of tamarisks. You claim millennia led to the false obelisks, led to what severs the head of connection in the time of least, but we only ask that you not kill us. New Jersey Transit Passenger Ode. On the way home from the MoMA, I decide I want those blue patent leather peep-toe stilettos and hardback Japanese novel with silver bookmark scissor dead center. I want vegetarian gumbo. I want snapper and trout blackened on the spit. I want feet that don't swell and veins that don't threaten varicosity. I want that lean man to kiss me on the back of the neck and smile when he whispers so I can feel what he means between breaths, the truth of all performance. I want that heiress ease minus the trickle down. I want to clear the Lincoln Tunnel shit. I want 24-hour service to be unnecessary. I want to sleep at night. And when I do, I want dreams like the one last April. My family all lived in the same place long enough to grow daffodils and safe babies. I want to know who's walking toward them on the street. I want a real salve, a cool wet cloth and jasmine tea. I want to bow down with my arms breaking earth until it grows more delicious than shaved dimes between my grandmother's teeth. I want the city's lights to stop telling me that bedtime story, the song I can't get enough of, the swagger keeping me hooked. Thank y'all.
Well, I am delighted. Not only am I dealing with some incredibly talented pro poets, but they came in on time, which means we have, I want to choose one moderated question that I think everyone can actually answer in a succinct amount of time. So I'm going to choose one that I had shared with the panelists previously. I'm going to ask you to take one poem that you read today and just describe its shape on the page or the way it's organized on the page a little bit, and just help those in the audience think about how that's in dialogue with the theme. And to give you a moment, I'll start. Little Love Poem is probably the shortest poem in Made to Explode. It's 12 lines. Couplets, which I always think of for me as a distilling force. Couplets for me are always about intimacy. And I wanted to make it faster than a sonnet. I knew that. I wanted it to be inside of the space of a sonnet. Is there anyone who would be willing to take it from there?
Sure, particularly because you brought up couplets. I love a couplet. I agree. I definitely use couplets to sort of move through or understand the intimacy between not only the voices of those in the poems themselves, but also as a way to try to strike an intimacy with the reader, even if they don't know it. And so particularly throughout like the first, I want to say 2 sections of the poem, There's some sparseness and, some contracting and constricting, but definitely I'm always leaving those little breadcrumbs of the couplets to say, no, beloved, I know this is difficult, but you still have to sit in this with me. This is, this human connection. And so I'm thinking particularly of the poem, there's most of my poems are in couplets in the book, but one blues in the hand, good as several in the blood, to talk about that familial intimacy of lineage of the Black woman in my family and the importance of a matriarch lineage as opposed to a patriarch lineage and what we actually are imbuing with that passing to the next generation. So thank you so much for that question. I love that.
I'll chime in. We can go in order of reading. So I wish it's easier to kind of show, but so the sections in the poem that are the speaker's voice are italicized, and then the objects are non-italicized, but there's no punctuation separating them. So I call them all one unit because I wanted to show how, we project ourselves onto our things, they become a part of us. Is a spoon not a part of your body when you're using it to eat? So I really wanted, the speaker's language to just slide right into the objects. And then on the page, there's just 3 lines per page because I wanted to really kind of slow down time and slow down the space of these reality TV shows, and particularly with Hoarders. If you've seen it, there's a lot of objects. You're in a very packed space. So I wanted to be able to kind of give each object attention. And so each line becomes almost like a still life painting or something like that. So you can slow down and actually take a look at it.
Maybe I'll combine all of those and talk about the first one, which I don't typically read often, Common Miracles. There are 1, 2, 3 single lines, 2 couplets, and then the center, it's this 3-line stanza. There's a lot of space in between the words. So it's very visual poem. And I find that the space offers like a surround for us to contain that image, which I, as a art school dropout, enjoy. And also there's like room for you to add the breath and listen for whatever music might come up because of the language. So that's what I would offer for that shape.
Terrific. Let me ask one other question that angles outward, perhaps at the audience's interests. For folks who might feel submerged by the everyday of life, household realities, caregiving, professional duties, who senses there might be poetry in their experience, but doesn't know how to locate it, how to make time for it. If anyone has suggestions, I will mention that Card Table, one of the poems I read today, I got the news of my grandmother's passing. She was the one who gave me the card table. And I remember being overwhelmed, and it coincided with a dry spell of writing. And I knew that I wanted to write about my grandparents' generation because that was part of the larger project of the book. But I felt completely incapable of stepping up to this loss and to this task. And honestly, standing in the kitchen, cussing, because I had just noticed this gouge in my card table, wondering what I had managed to do and thinking, okay, I don't know if I'm up for elegy, but I'm up for this. I'm up for channeling this. And that to me is that is the example of how the everyday can fuel a creative spark that otherwise you're not sure you can foster in the moment. And if anyone else just wants to, it could take the shape of a tip, could take the shape of a hack, or it could, oh yes, sorry, let's pause. Let's re-spotlight, not just the interpreter, although the interpreter is great.
Could I add something? I have been a caregiver for my mother for the past year. She has dementia and Alzheimer's, and she's in severe decline right now. So, but the things that were coming up in the beginning were very much like triggering things because I did not have an easy childhood with my mother. She's a very difficult person and a very powerful person. But I am also, you know, her advocate. So all those complications were, I felt as though if I didn't write about it, it was going to be too overwhelming. So I would suggest just being really messy with it. If you're in that same kind of boat, just let it be a mess right now. And then one day you're gonna arrive at something very crystal clear, and it'll be the right thing, whether or not you want to share it with people. It will help you as the person to be clear about what you think. And you may come across something that surprises you, image-wise and language-wise.
I love that so much, Khadija. Definitely be messy. Don't worry about trying to, today I'm going to sit down at my desk and I'm going to try to get through, you know, the communal and familial history of misogynoir in these particular poems. Like, no, that's not going to work, right? One thing which is unorthodox and so is great, I'm going to go ahead and suggest, is that I've taken, particularly during the pandemic, because we're so interfaced in technology as a way to communicate with one another through all this distance. I had stopped texting people back and started just like voice memoing people back. And I save them so that I can go back and listen to them, because the person that I'm talking to, or either myself, will always, you know, do something that seems like a betrayal of what the communication of like, oh, hey, how you doing? The small talk of like, whatever, you catch like little glimpses. And I like to keep those as like little jewels to come back to, or remember like, oh, I was talking to my friend Christina and she was asking me what yummy thing that I was making. And I was thinking about puttanesca, which made me think about olives, which made me think about whatever, right? And so I think just like saving those little, they're like little love letters for yourself to come back to exactly at the moment when you need them. So start recording yourself and keeping little, even if it's not like in text messages to friends, but keeping little voice memos if you can. Because I guarantee when you go back to transcribe it, you'll pull something out that's kind of like surprising and unexpected.
I love voice memos too. Well, this is like very personal, but when my partner and I got together, we were living, he was in Maine and I was living here, and we would send each other voice memos. And I just love that I still have those. I would just say, you know, if you're struggling to think of a way to write through the everyday, you're surrounded by stuff all the time. And I really like objects. I always have. Ever since I was a child, I felt like my toys were alive, and I felt really guilty, you know, when I would stop playing with a specific group of toys. And, you know, I'd like turn their heads away so I didn't like see their eyes and feel really guilty that I'd stopped playing with my Care Bears, for example. So, you know, I think just grabbing onto one object in your environment, and it can even be an object that kind of like bothers you or irritates you, like Sandra was saying with the card table, and then just trying to go into that object, I think can be you know, at least an interesting exercise, but you might find that there's like a lot of depth there and interesting places to go.
Thank you. I want to just reiterate my thanks to everyone, and actually check in with the festival organizers, because I could certainly come up with another question, but I also recognize that we've had a rigorous several days in a row of festival activities, and maybe check in with them to see if we want to wrap things up at this time.
If you have more that you would like to share, like totally go for it. Especially if there's like any other questions like in the chat. We're happy to keep going. We've got until 3:45. So if you'd like to keep going, totally fine.
Okay. I am just keeping an eye on the chat to see. I think that one other question I can ask of folks. Here's what I'm not going to ask. What are you working on now? Because we are all surviving, and that is enough. We have new books in the world. That is enough. But I am going to ask, what is nourishing your creative spirit right now? It does not have to be something that's on the page yet, but I will mention that I am growing things in the balcony adjacent to my 9th floor apartment in Southwest DC. And we're growing jalapenos for the first time. And that brings me delight. And I find that having something to do with my hands that is not verbal is saving me right now. So does anybody else have anything that is maybe an everyday thing, but it's just helping you be a person and therefore be a writer in the world right now? Bring me your pleasures, brilliant people.
I just drove cross country. So I'm tired. I don't have a daily thing yet. But what I'm hoping is that I'll be able to like organize the house. It's a much bigger place. So I'll have like a separate dressing room and be able to like put my clothes where I want them because I like clothes, and like have a nice area to myself to get dressed. And I know that sounds like very frivolous, but I am looking forward to, because I've never had that. So I'm looking forward to putting together my dressing room.
Not frivolous at all. No.
I love that you're going to have a dressing room. It's going to be so beautiful. I've just been going for a lot of walks. I feel like that's kind of a boring answer, but I've always liked going for walks. And I think particularly because we can't be in crowds of people, just spending time with trees is nice.
A combination of all of those things. Here's one of my plant babies that I got. It's a satin pothos. She's thriving. All of the plants in my house that I've purchased are all named after music divas. So in my kitchen is, Donna Summer and Apollonia Rogers Nelson. And in my living room is Phyllis Hyman. So that's been giving me a delight because I am a music nerd, and that's just the hill that I'm going to live on. And then also similar, not having just recently moved, but I did, the week that my book came out, I moved into a new apartment. I completely changed industries. I was running a fine dining bar in a restaurant, and I had been working in hospitality actually longer than I've been a poet. So having to completely shift gears and jump into, which has been completely rewarding. I love what I'm doing right now, but it's a lot of transition. So I'm nesting a lot. If you notice, I'm in like one area of my apartment where like the walls are still kind of bare. I have art prints coming from the UK and a couple of other places. So I'm just really looking forward this summer to like really nesting and like cultivating a very peaceful and vibrant and lovely and as my partner likes to say, a Black intellectual space. I think it's going to be really, really great, in addition to continually taking walks and going on hikes and spending time with my beloveds outside. So
See what we get with the random question. And I want to thank our interpreter, who is obviously dealing with improvised texts in this moment. That is wonderful. Is there anything else that folks want to share with those in the audience in terms of announcements, forward things? We're about to share links in the chat that will direct people to their social media presence or their books or organizations to which they'd like to have donations. Also, Claire in the chat asks about influences. I will just answer that briefly. We don't have to all answer that, but if someone wants to pick up after me, I just want to mention, Erica, you mentioned Phyllis Hyman, and I am deep in the trenches of writing about Northern Virginia and DC music right now because I'm working on a project. And so Phyllis Hyman, of course, used to come around here, saying, you know, Eva Cassidy, Angela Bofill. I'm thinking a lot about what we'd be listening to at the dinner table when I was growing up, and wishing I had snuck into DC more during that time. So I love that organically, when I think about what influences me, I would say music as much as poetry. And that's key to the nonfiction project that I'm working on right now. Does anybody else want to speak just for a minute or two about influences, literary or, yeah, Kate, please.
Well, specifically for hoarders, I was very inspired by Tender Buttons. And of course that book, well, what I like is that it's just objects, right? And they have this kind of language of their own and life of their own. And so it really inspired me to feel that I could write a book that centered objects and their subjectivity. And then of course, even though we're very different poets in a lot of ways, Frank O'Hara also liked stuff and the same kind of stuff I like. So those are two influences for me.
I love all those influences, and I grew up listening to Phyllis Hyman and Angela Bofill, so I appreciate hearing those names. You know, right before DMX died, I had just finished another draft of my book about my time in the military, and DMX was like the soundtrack to my military service. So it was, that music was helping me finish it, and then finding out he passed away was something. Thinking about the complex nature of patriarchal influence is something that I think I'm going into now.
Definitely that part. Obviously, all the music people. I'm actually going to drop a link to the playlist to my book because I love making playlists. As a child born in the 80s and have my formative years of making mixtapes, it's never going to die. I'm going to make mixtapes forever. So I'll share that and you'll get all those influences. But also in this book in particular, the critical work of Christina Sharp was a huge influence on this work. And thinking about the intersections of literally being in what she deems as the wake of the transatlantic slave trade, but then also focusing on the feminine in that way was really, really formative and important, and allowed me to sit with some of those historical harder things and draw them into the interior in a way that I hadn't been able to do before. And so shout out to Christina Sharp all day.
Thank you. MP.
Yes, thank you all so much. And poets, I hope if you have a website, socials, links to books, chapbooks, and you haven't already, please put them in the chat box now so that people can follow up with you. And can we please get a round of Zoom appreciation for our poets? All right, thank you all. Thank you all so much. And so don't forget to support the poets directly by following them and buying their books. Well, it says here in the script, there's plenty more amazing programming happening this weekend, but actually there's one more amazing program, the next one, the headline event. I hope you'll join us. If you're interested in getting the link, you can check out our website. You can also visit the virtual Small Press Fair, listen to the Improbable audio tour, visit the Ekphrastic Gallery, and more. And please follow Mass Poetry on our social media accounts. Sign up for our newsletter if you haven't already. The links are listed in chat, and any donations will go to support not just the festival, but year-round poetry programming. Thank you so much for coming to this event, and we hope to see you again. And thank you again, poets.